Welcome to Beautiful Life. This week we have had on our broadcast Dr. Angelina DaSilva, who is an educator, a counselor, an author, a speaker, just a wonderful, blessed woman of God that has a some tremendous insight on how to communicate effectively. And on the broadcast all week, we've had her. If this is your first time viewing the broadcast today, then please log on and find the prior broadcast so that you can be included on all our prior discussions leading up to this broadcast today. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Angel, we're so happy to have you with us. We know that your official name is Angelina,
yes,
but
it
we
is.
call her Angel. Those of us that love her call her Angel. So we're going to dive right in the broadcast today. We ended our last broadcast having you give a brief history of why you called the book Communication ADD. So now give us a little bit more insight into what each one of these letters means and how it is relevant to how we communicate to one another.
Sure. On the last broadcast also we talked about the need for balance, spirit, soul, and body. And our soul area is really what houses our emotions. Mm-hmm. And that's really where the relational part of us is. Right. It's in our emotional side, it's in our soul. And unfortunately, a lot of things can attack that area. Our emotions respond to
our history.
Influences. Yes.
What our history is.
Learned
The
behaviors.
kind of trauma that could have happened. People don't understand that even though your spirit is made new at the new birth, that is made new, but there's a process of transformation, the renewing of your mind. And it's taking the Word of God, and oftentimes through the help of others, which is why God gifts people like you with skills, divine skill sets, to help others process that soul transformation. Yes. Because some of it comes from our childhood, how we learn behavior sometimes from the things our parents. There's a reason we call them generational habits, because that's how they come down the family line, so to speak. It's important to understand that this isn't something that happens overnight. And I guess in your case, it was a blessing to have a person in your life that you were married to that understood that journey for you as a couple, but also as individuals.
And it is a journey. I'm so glad you used that word, because it's a journey.
Right.
And I think what's really important to get out there is that there are going to be bad days and good days on this journey. And there are people who I deal with who think that they've overcome something and then they have a slip up. And
what I like to say is, I always like to say, oh, I put the rose on the coffin in that one, and then all of a sudden the corpse comes up out of the coffin. When you think you're dead and had the funeral for that issue, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the zombie walking around.
And so depending on what your mindset is, and that if you feel like, oh, I failed, I've messed up, that could set a person back. But if a person recognizes that, hey, this was whatever it was, I'm not that same person. I made a commitment to forgive. A lot of times it's forgiveness. Something triggers negative feelings and they feel like, oh, I'm back where I started. No, you're not. You're just on this journey.
That's the wonderful part of the Lord, is that, of his personality is grace, his mercy, and his unfailing love, that he sticks with us. So the A is to acknowledge.
Right. So here we have one of the most important parts, the most important part of this whole process, acknowledgement. There are 7 billion, I believe, people in this world, and every one of them needs validation. In some way, for some reason. The reason behind it might be different based on temperaments. We talked about that a little bit in our last broadcast. But whatever your temperament is, we all need, no matter what, acknowledgement, recognition, validation.
Yes.
And when that is not part of a relationship, it opens up the door to many other issues. It's not infidelity that breaks up a marriage. It's not financial issues. It's not, so many other things that cause relationships to break apart. It's often the root of that is in the communication breakdown, which starts because of lack of validation and acknowledgement.
Right. So a person can have, let's say, a couple, a spouse is communicating something, and you strongly disagree, but it's not acknowledging that those feelings are real to them.
Right.
That even if you have to work through what they really are, the fact is they're real to them.
Right.
And that you value their feelings.
Yes.
You value their right.
It's not
to
necessarily
feel something,
agreement.
even if you don't agree with it.
Yes.
So that's how I took it from the
That
book.
is
which I thought
absolutely
it's making
correct.
that person feel valued. And I will tell you, just what I see in the media, and I think this A part of acknowledging the value of what the other person has to say. I think our discourse, forget publicly how we talk to one another, even in public is. And I think part of it is some of these reality TV shows where it's somehow honored or thought is something to be entertained by, seeing people belittle people in conversation, and when they view something, calling them a name or whatever, and we shut down. And if someone doesn't value that, then I think right there that communication breaks down right at that moment, because it's like saying to that person, "Oh, you idiot! What makes you think you could feel feel like that?" And there's an anger. And if we have other issues, we feel like we're being attacked. So the primary thing, what I got from the book was ADD. The first thing is acknowledging and affirming and validating that person's right to feel what they're feeling at that moment. And that, in a way, sets up for the disarm and the diffuse.
Absolutely.
So when we come back, now that we've understood a little bit, now mind you, we just want to give you an appetizer so that you get this book, because it's going to be a wonderful tool in your life. We will then find out from Angelina the other two, which are disarm and diffuse.
Tis the season of giving. Kathy Bichsel Ministries and Beautiful Life are on a mission. As we do every year, we want to make this holiday season special for the children of Joseph's House, our missions project in Kampala, Uganda. We want to give them a holiday feast of special foods and provide greatly needed new school uniforms and shoes. Would you please consider helping us make this their best Christmas yet? Please go to www.kathybichsel.com/Joseph's House. That's KATHYBICHSEL.com.
Welcome back. We are going to now talk about the other two components of Dr. Angel's technique for communication. So let's dive into DD.
DD, okay. So we talked about acknowledgement and validation being incredibly important in just opening up the door for communication. So what happens after a person feels like they have a voice, like they've been validated? The first D, which is disarm, comes into play. And when you think about, I oftentimes do this with my clients, I have them get very tense as if they're getting into a fight, they're in a boxing ring. And I say, put your fists in front of your face and squeeze and get really ready, as if physically ready, and notice what's happening to your body, and your muscles are engaged, the veins on your neck pop out. For women, oftentimes we feel it in our shoulders. My trainer always says to me, relax your shoulders, and I know. Really? My shoulders are tense?
Your ears,
you're up in your neck and shoulders. So women, we feel all the tension up here. But when you are physically engaged in a battle, you are standing there, muscles completely flexed, just looking at your opponent, waiting. What you're thinking about is where the next blow is going to come. You're not really, you're not engaged mentally.
You're thinking about what you're going to say next.
What you'll say
instead of
next.
Listening.
Right.
I'm guilty of that one. Jeez.
That's the physical muscles being tense. We have emotional muscles too. So when communication is defensive, when we're not being validated, when we don't feel acknowledged, our emotional muscles are engaged and we are ready to attack. I'm not hearing what you're saying. I'm only thinking about how I'm going to respond to what I perceive is going to be said.
Wow, that's powerful, Angelina.
When you
That's
acknowledge,
fantastic.
isn't that awesome? When you acknowledge somebody, you disarm them. There's nothing to defend.
Right.
If we're sitting here having a conversation about something, and I say to you, Kathy, I see your point. I can see why you're saying that. I understand completely where you're coming from. Now, I don't necessarily agree with you, but I'm giving you that voice. You might feel like you wanted to say, yeah, but there you have nothing to defend. There's nothing to defend. So you disarm. And once those defenses are dropped and that those emotional muscles relax, you diffuse the situation and communication can take place. So that's it in a nutshell.
Right. So the disarming the disarming actually leads to the diffusion. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and of course, it's not a magic bullet, right? This is not something. In fact, we'll go back to temperaments. The melancholy temperament is extremely cynical. So if you start employing in your relationships, the melancholy is going to say, what are you doing? What's going on? Like it's going to take a little while.
Really exactly. Are you working something
so
over
I
me,
tell my clients, be patient. This is not just for conflict. This is how you should engage and interact no matter what, during all of your conversations. Always put down the phone, for goodness sake, when someone is trying to talk to you. Communicate, validate that person. Validation isn't just through words. In fact, I think the statistic that I have in my book is somewhere between 80 to 95% of communication is nonverbal. I might be getting that wrong, but I know I have the statistic in here. So it's not just about saying something back. It's about engaging, looking at the person, and technology has caused that's a whole other issue.
That was what I also wanted to talk to you about today, because you open, actually some of the opening statements that you make in your book are around how the breakdown culturally in communication, in general, I should say, and you had actually given us, written about given us an anecdote about being at dinner and seeing another couple. And it was interesting because I was out, I guess several months ago with my daughter, and a couple sat down next to us, and it was a restaurant where the seats were very close, so you didn't have to whatever. I don't think they said two words to each other. The entire time, their faces were in that phone. And I thought to myself, can't you even put it down to just for dinner time, And so talk a little bit about that, how you think that's challenged as marriages and family life, et cetera.
It's thrown a whole other curveball into this, into our lives. We're the first generation who's navigating these waters. I mean, when I was growing up, we had ColecoVision and Atari. I'm dating myself. Oh my gosh, Nintendo, things like that. But they were connected to the TV, so we shut that off and went to dinner. We're just this generation now. We've just been thrown into this technology ocean that we don't know what to do with.
And where it used to be just the challenge of getting everybody around the dinner table. I know my husband and I are raising our children, even though they were involved in sports and all kinds of other things, we made that family time at night all the time. For a lot of families, especially where both parents are working, getting that family time is a challenge. It's like a rare commodity. Now you have in the mix getting that family time, but now getting everybody delivered from their gadgets while they're at the family time. And you shared even in your own personal, your family, that, one day you had this awakening when everybody was on their gadgets instead of with one another.
And we definitely have a rule in our family, and my kids are fantastic with it, that we are completely unplugged at the dinner table. No phones, no anything. And the kids like it. They like to engage. They like to talk. And family dinner and mealtime, it's incredibly important. And we've got to be intentional about doing those things. As challenging as it is.
And as parents, we need to show the leadership. And sometimes as working parents, in our family, we don't have this issue because my husband is Fred Flintstone, and he is proud of the fact that he has no devices. He does not need devices. And
good for him.
And sometimes I do say good for him, because when I'm sometimes running around frantically, trying to fix a computer problem. He's just there in his phlegmatic way, just sitting there, not having a care.
Doesn't have to worry about it at all.
But we don't have it. But I know a lot of parents do, because it's the stress and what the work ethic is in our country, and what sometimes employers have an expectation that you have to be on 24/7. When I pastors, we had the rule in our house, no phone calls, nothing, no matter what, short of a death or something like that, which thankfully we never had those. But anyway, we're going to be right back with Angel, so I can give you some information about her practice, her counseling practice. We really want to get some information about that, how people can contact you and get in better touch with what's really happening out there in the counseling world.
Throughout time, God has always reserved for himself a remnant, a people fully sold out to his message and willing to pay the price of radical discipleship. While the church and the world lie in crises, a message is sounding once again throughout the corridors of time, that God can alter the course of history through a radical few. Consider Moses, the Apostle Paul, Daniel, Noah, Abraham, and Peter, just to name a few sold-out radicals to God's calling. Don't settle for the confines of the ordinary when the Father has set his love on you to be extraordinary. Rise up out of the ashes of loss and disappointment and take hold of the one who makes all things new. Join us on an adventure of faith to experience Christianity the way it is supposed to be. Radical, the Radical Rising Remnant. The latest book from Kathy Bichsel. Get your copy now at kathybichsel.com.
Welcome back. We are in our final segment with Dr. Angelina DaSilva. And I want to remind you again that her book is available on her website, angelinadasilva.com. You can, that information will be on our screen. It's, how much is the book?
I believe it's $12.95 on the website.
She knows how much it is now. We've got it. $12.95. It's worth the investment. We have that information for you. But probably more importantly, I would just like for you to know, as our viewers, one of the questions I'm asked often. I don't do so much counseling now as I used to do when I was in pastoral ministry. Now I itinerate and preach, and I'm back to loving and leaving them. But no, but honestly, I
send them my way.
Yes, but honestly, I do have a lot of relationships with ministry leaders in the country, and always like to help them or whatever. But even locally here in New Jersey, but actually because of Skype and technology. Those of you that have counseling ministries like yourself are able to actually do distance counseling through Skype. I have another very close friend of mine who also has a great counseling ministry, and she does the same thing through Skype. So I want to make available for you, our viewers, some information about Angel's practice and how you can contact her, how you can set up an appointment with her if there's some issues in your life that you really feel that you need help with, which is a good thing, right? Yes. You received counseling for your own marriage. Yes. It didn't mean you had to do it your whole life. When you're in trouble, you need help. Yeah. So, Angel, tell us some things that you're doing in your practice. You mentioned that you have parenting workshops in perhaps your community, whatever. So, just give our viewers in the final 5 minutes of the broadcast. Tell us all about you, what you're doing, and how they can connect with you.
Sure, I do Skype, and I do face-to-face and phone. I'll do whatever I can to help a person where they're at.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We talked about in our last segment how terrible technology can be, but it can also be good. And I've been
true.
so blessed by
true.
Being able to Skype, and I've got clients pretty much all over the country, so it's really cool to be able to do that. But I am located in Western New Jersey, in Clinton, New Jersey is where my office is, so anyone in that little rural area can come out to my office, which would be great to see people who are viewing me today. And the information is on my website, angelinadasilva.com. I specialize in just biblical counseling, family counseling, marriages, teenagers, children, so any aspect of that family counseling. I also am certified in health and wellness and women's issues. So
that's
a lot of my
fantastic.
thank you, and just general life coaching as well. So I have a counseling practice and a coaching practice. They're not one and the same, different strategies for each. I also do speaking engagements in my local community where I do the parenting workshops, and I've done workshops especially for women on burnout. I have a great workshop on.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, oh yeah. I have
Wow.
a great workshop on.
That's nice to know. Any of you women out
Yeah.
there who are feeling burnt out, that's great.
And
That's great.
being a Proverbs 31 woman in a
Oh,
21st century world, that's one of
Right.
my other ones. So I love
Right.
doing that.
And actually, even if you're not burnt out, it probably is something. I would
Preventing
love to say
burnout.
great strategies to
Yes.
to prevent it.
Yeah.
I know being a working mom and coming. In my case, I grew up in a single parent home as the oldest child, so I have kind of a life leaning of probably being over responsible, and sometimes that in itself could put a level of pressure on you that no
Yes.
one else in your family is putting on you, but you're putting on yourself,
Yes.
whether it's how you're processing your own level of perfection or whatever else that is. But
We could
that's,
be
I
here
didn't
all
realize
day.
you did all that. I didn't realize that's
do.
really
yeah,
wonderful.
I do, and it's a lot of fun to be, I do this stuff one-on-one with people, but I love being in the group and the interaction with the women especially. No offense, men, but
Yeah.
I tend to gravitate toward the ministry toward women in that regard. But yeah, so I do all of those things, and in the office, like I said in an earlier segment, it's all about finding that balance spiritually,
Yes.
physically, and emotionally, and that comes through many things. I deal with a lot. I deal with anxiety, depression, stress.
What are you seeing the most in your practice? Like if I had to say, we talk in ministry, I'll say to pastors or what's happening? What are you seeing happening with people? What are some of the challenges in your practice? What are you seeing? What is standing out as problem areas that you're seeing in people's lives right now, more than let's say maybe 5 years ago or whatever? What is the trend in?
Yeah, sadly, people ask me, how's business? And I say, I'm busy. And that's bittersweet, right? Because I wish I weren't. I wish that I didn't have, that people were dealing with these things. So I've got two things that are going on much more frequently than others. I'm getting a lot of kids lately. I'm getting a lot of, and I don't know if that's just parents being more in tune,
maybe more proactive about the mental health of their children as possible.
10-year-olds, 10 to 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, their parents are coming to me with their children. And on that note, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I also counsel the parents because it's not generally it's not just about the kids, it's about the parents as well. But on the other side of that, I am getting a lot of women who are not happy. And we talked about happiness. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but
I think
it was one of our sessions. We talked about happiness, and they're married for 15, 20, 25 years, and they want out of their marriages because they never loved their husband, or they did.
Oh, goodness,
And I think that this is just a product of the society in which
It
we're
is.
living.
I agree with you, Angel.
And so I'm wrestling with that a lot, and it is
because there's now the cultural norm. This is what you do. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's books out there, on like even menopause. Men and women go. The world describes it as, society describes it as like midlife, whatever. And the idea is, you're at your midway point, and the celebrities do this, so now we should do this. You just get a new person, and we all know the statistics say getting a new person. They say that the statistics are that 5 years into the new person, they wish that they stayed with the first person. Correct?
Yes.
I mean, if that's my statistics are right.
Oh, I think you're spot on.
Yeah, but the culture is of, changing partners like shoes and et cetera. Well, Angel, we are going to have to have you back. I know we're done for today. We are going to have to have Angel back. We were talking with the producers that we just might have our Dr. Angel segment on Beautiful Life, having come in and talk about these issues that you might be facing, your neighbors might be facing, but God has a solution. Do not lose sight of the fact that you have the opportunity through Jesus Christ to have a beautiful life. And our heart and passion on this broadcast is to bring guest speakers, to bring teaching, to give you opportunity to have that beautiful life fulfilled. Do not lose hold of the promises of God for you to have a life of peace, tranquility, and prosperity in every dimension of your life. We love you here at Beautiful Life. Don't forget to log on, beautifullifetv.com. Send us your emails. Please donate if the Holy Spirit leads you to do so. We love you, and don't forget to tune in next time.
With the hundreds of ways to communicate in the modern world, it seems ironic that people are failing to adequately hear each other. Conflict, strife, and discouragement in relationships are the results of a fundamental breakdown of communication professionally and personally. In this book, based on biblical principles, Dr. DaSilva challenges you to listen before you to speak with the other person's feelings in mind, and to respond rather than react. By using the communication ADD techniques, you will become a better spouse, a better parent, and a better worker simply because you've learned how to communicate on a higher level. We trust you enjoyed this episode of Beautiful Life and the teaching ministry of Kathy Bichsel. For more information about Kathy, her books, downloads, and CDs, please visit beautifullifetv.com. If you are interested in Kathy's teaching schedule, or perhaps you would like her to speak at a church or event near you, please email info@beautifullifetv.com. We would like to thank you for taking the time to join us, as we trust that God's blessing will continue to offer you His beautiful life. So long for now.